Hi, and welcome to the Selected Tech podcast, brought to you by a group of 4 MVPs doing webinars, sessions, and interviews on all things SharePoint, Office 365, and the Microsoft AI ecosystem. Their motto is learn, share, reuse. And here they are, Albert Jan, Rick, Stefan, and Thommy.
So, good evening. Welcome at another episode of Selected Tech. Tonight we're going to talk you through Blazor and Teams. So, Blazor is the new and happening thing around building client web apps with C#. And Thommy figured out how to actually get that running in Teams. So, Thommy, talk us through it. What have you done?
Yep. Let's start by sharing my screen. There we are. You guys tell me when you see something.
Yep, everything is good. As long as you minimize my Teams window, because I'm not going to leave myself all night.
Again, the same mistake. Sorry.
There we go.
Okay, let's start with a quick introduction of Blazor, or what Blazor actually is. Up front, I'm not that experienced with Blazor. I'm just playing around with it for the last couple of weeks. So not a real Blazor guy talking. It's more like how we can use this technology inside of our context of 65 in Teams. And the true reason is that I suck at writing code in JavaScript. And I looked for a way how to do it with C# again. And Blazor looks like a nice tool that allows me to use my 10 years old experience of writing code in C# again in the browser. So Blazor actually is two different things. Most of the time when you talk with people, everyone believes that Blazor only is the WebAssembly thing. And WebAssembly basically is the idea that you run the code compiled in your browser, written in C#, even in C or any other language, but the browser actually uses machine code and interprets everything on its own end. So not the server is running the code, but the browser is running the code. This actually will be released this week. We are in the beginning of the, let's call it build week. This week is build 2020. And in 2 days, Microsoft promised to GA or make it public available, the WebAssembly version of Blazor. But already since last year at the Ignite conference, Microsoft GA'd the Blazor server component. And the server component is then a different thing, where the code basically runs again in C#, but back on your server, and talks to the client with a SignalR connection. And then you can do smart things like this button here, and you provide an on-click event, increment count, and you see here new way of writing code inside of a web page, the code tag, and then you just have your C# code updating the button here when something clicks or somebody clicks there. So binding the event from the HTML button directly to C# code. That's what I was looking for, and let's see what you can create with that. So first example is a small application. Let's show the example first. If you start a new Blazor web page, you work with .NET Framework, .NET Core Framework 3.1, and you get exactly that nice layout already with a whole application with some navigation elements on the left side, so a menu and some example that, for example, fetch data already. So there is a service integrated in the example that fetches data, and that's when you look closely to my URL, I already deployed this sample to one of my Azure subscriptions, so I can easily work with that demo without the need of running Visual Studio every time. But what we see here is a normal Blazor web application, and that's built in the way. Let's stop the function for a moment, because the solution also has a function that we will need on later. You see here different components, pages, and what we start with is an initial host file that defines the head of your HTML part, and then you have different apps and components, and everything you load inside Blazor as a Blazor component, for example, the index page, welcome to your new app. So let's check back again. Welcome to your new app. So this is the code here that's shown in this component. Very easy, not the full HTML code, because at runtime or at compile time, basically, Visual Studio creates the whole structure of your website based on your components and based on your template files. But when we get a little bit further, let's go for like the production page here, where I have a simple input box and a button. Let's look that up. Production here. Let me zoom in a little bit. You guys can read that good?
Yeah,
Is this?
Yeah, it's okay.
So very simple HTML code, but already what's called a Blazor component. And for Blazor components, you can write HTML code up here, and then you just have the code component running in the same page, in the same Blazor component. And what this example does is, a simple production center, I called it. And you see, I copied something from Teams already, because from different templates, like always, those examples are copy and paste from different things already out there. But paragraph, input, and then a button text. A button here, and the button is connected, the on-click event, to send simple message. And you already see that's not some fancy tool that makes those colorful impressions on my Visual Studio. That's already something Razor does. So you see, okay, in C# now, I have here private async task send simple message connected to the event. So when I click the button, actually I'm running this code here. And the code snippet here is just pushing out a small message text to an Azure Cloud Queue, so we can make use of it in another net. And to make that even run, because the third-party solution here, so everything, go back for the index or the personal component, is actually the web application we saw a couple of minutes ago or a couple of seconds ago. But also locally here, I have a function that will read the message queue we will write to with that simple method here, and then we push the message to Teams. So let's run the function locally. And of course, I could also deploy this function to Azure, but that's more like for demo purposes. So I like it to have this run locally and all the web pages out there.
So next time you should show this in Windows Terminal, right?
If I'm able to, I would, yeah. But that's what's happening if you press F5 in Visual Studio. I don't know. You can for sure change that, or?
Yeah, you can. You can.
Okay. Okay, let's go back to our page here. And when I type here hello demo, let's hope for the best. We should see something popping up here, because if I click the button, the message will be posted to the queue, and the function actually is queue triggered. So as soon as there is something new, it should run. Let's see. Yep, already here. And then if we look at Teams, we have here a hello demo message. So what the function actually does is, I'm using I think it's called Office 365 connectors that you can hook up to a Teams channel as well, and just post back a short message here. The idea is that this third-party solution maybe be your CRM system, or maybe be your ERP system like SAP, or whatever ERP system also is out there, or any machine that is running on your shop floor and sending error messages, or whatever is out there that people inside your organization need to communicate with in a way that they need to get information or notifications or act on something. And the next thing is basically same idea. We're just going over for production advanced. To make it advanced demo, we need to write advanced. Same procedure. So we're writing just to a different message queue in the same storage account, just to trigger our production 2 function over here. But this time I'm using the message extensions in Teams, and I already provide a way to get feedback back to my third-party system. So have a nice icon, a dog here. I see my message that I posted through my third-party application, and what I can do now is that I set change status, set to active, and when I click on save, actually, you see this triggers a call to my API, so I can go there and post information back to my API. So this makes the whole demo like we say in German, round. It's 360 degrees. You start in the third-party solution, create a notification, create a task, create a request, whatever, post it to Teams, and then from Teams, you get information back to the same endpoint. And on the other end, you can proceed with, an order, an offer, whatever you requested, or in a more industry example, maybe this third-party solution is a machine on the shop floor that says, hey, I'm running out of X, Y, and Z. And with this button, you provide already new stuff for that. So just the idea to have a Teams demo that shows the capabilities of the Teams platform a little bit more, and to show how you can integrate different stuff also here without the need of creating the real cool stuff that Stefan is capable of without the need to create a bot. Just by using,
if you now have a bot, then
for bot, it's of course a bot you can do more sophisticated things. But to get started, let's stop actually the Azure function and look at the function code, because that's really sophisticated.
Probably just call on a endpoint.
That's all there is.
That's cool.
Because I'm using a card that is locally stored, a trick that Stefan showed me to store your adaptive cards or message. It's not a real adaptive card because Teams is still not able to use adaptive cards when you use an Office 365 connector. That's still on the roadmap. But I'm just using a template, then I'm replacing a template, and send it out.
Yeah.
And the advanced stuff looks pretty same because it's just a different JSON.
Yeah.
Just different. So it's really simple, and for me that's way easier to create this stuff than to create a whole bot that is capable of proactive messaging.
Yes.
The code in the bot isn't that different, but everything you need around to get it working, it's a totally different code. Yeah, so that's way easier.
Can you open up the Blazor page? How do you see? If you do F12 on the Blazor page, do you see it's Blazor for some reason? No, in the browser. Because I know with the new JavaScript, React, Vue, whatever you want. If you open up F12, you see a shitload of JS files.
No, it's a pretty clean page that you get.
So you don't see the C#. Okay, pretty cool.
No.
Just HTML and SignalR.
It's just nothing more.
Oh, cool. Nice, clean.
So when you think of it, you can actually deploy it as on a static location.
Yep.
Blob storage or.
And then you have the Blazor.server.js that does the signal path.
You can only use the static version for WebAssembly, not for the server part.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, for WebAssembly, you that's the idea to store your page even in a simple blob and make it accessible, because what the browser will do is that it grabs everything from the blob and basically it's running then on the client, and everything compute happens on the client. Every rendering is done on the client. It's a cool thing, I think, especially for all the cloud vendors, because it's shifting CPU workload from data centers to clients.
Mm-hmm.
What we get is that you can also take WebAssembly stuff offline without the need of forever being online. I don't know if this really helps us in the Office 365 space, because most of the time probably we will use something that connects to the cloud. But I can think already of some applications where maybe we did that in the past, where you create some mobile applications for people that work in the construction industry.
Yeah.
And they are in a place where there is no internet yet, because they're building just the place there. So it makes sense to have something, an offline buffer that then, when it's connected, posts back messages. I can think of same scenarios for the web center stuff, but this actually is, everything is here G8, so it's all Blazor server component. So this was the short demo for the third-party Teams solution. But after playing with this simple page here, I thought about how can I get this component running inside the Teams tab, so that it's like using Blazor as a tool or as a framework, because it's nothing else like a framework inside of a Teams tab. And for that, I think, Rick, you need to mute yourself.
Oh, yes.
A lot of background noise. Let's go back to the Blazor Teams tab. We need to, I will show you the demo first and then walk you through the code. I just need to make sure that my ng-rock is running. And I'm running the local page here, and everything is available. Let's see. Yep. So I'm going to my Teams tenant, and I'm clicking Teams tab. Let's see. It's a very simple page, and on purpose, you saw a nice little redirect from the first page, because the Teams application in the background is hooked up, or the tab is configured in a way that you get to the index page, and then the Blazor stuff kicks in, and I will walk you through the authentication part. But in the end of the day, what we are doing here is that we can make a graph test call with the user. So this is my demo user. I can clear it again and call the graph again. But I'm authenticated in Blazor with me as a user using an Azure AD application that provides me the access token to talk to the graph in Blazor inside the Microsoft Teams tab. So that's the whole idea of the demo. And the difference, difference between this Blazor standalone application. This is also, or how should I say? I think protected. Yeah, protected is the right verb. Protected with Azure AAD. So you shouldn't be able to call that website on your end. You must be part of my Azure Active Directory. That's why I'm so happily able to share the URL, and I hope it's true as well, but I think I connected it this way. But here I'm just, what I can do here is, of course, I could also connect to the graph and talk through the normal authentication flow. So creating an Azure AD app, hook it up and use it in like this Blazor app. But for Teams, we have a special environment because we are a tab inside of Teams. So we are also interested in the connection to Teams to get information about the Teams user, to get information about the tab, the group, the team where maybe this tab is deployed. So I want to make sure that I use everything the Teams JavaScript SDK has to offer. And what I ended up doing, basically, I will try to leave this running in the background. First of all, there is this index HTML page. And the index HTML page, this was the page that flickered for a second and showed you this claims for ID token profile from Microsoft Graph via behalf on flow, yada, yada, yada. All those HTML that's there from, I think, stolen from a Node.js Teams AAD authentication example. But what I'm using here is just AWS and the Microsoft Teams SDK in the version 1.6. I think you need to do it up from 1.4, and you need 1.6 for SSO, but that's not really out yet. It's just on a developer preview until hopefully the end of this week. But the interesting thing is the page starts with Microsoft Teams initialize. And then I'm creating the configuration for calling AWS for getting the ID token for my users. So I have some query parameters like a login hint and the user object ID, and I will show you where on the other end this is present in a second. But then I just use configuration, my ID from my Azure AD application, and my redirect URL that is configured in Azure Active Directory as well. And when you look at this login hints, let's go back. I think it should be in the Teams manifest.
Yeah, it's a query.
You see here the tab configuration. And to pass this information into my application, you can configure the tab that it includes the login hint, the tenant ID, the group, and the theme. So that's the theme is needed for, think of the example that somebody is using Teams in the dark theme, somebody is using Teams in the default theme, and your tab should apply the actual correct theming based on what the user actually has set up in his target environment. So we'll get this information also, but this actually costed me like, I don't know, 4 hours after realizing that you cannot add those, or I was at least unable to add those parameters in the Teams app manifest.
Yeah.
So I added, or finally, sometime late in some night, it came to me like, okay, let's just export the manifest from the app studio and manipulate it by hand, because the App Studio wants to create what it's called a secure or safe URL with all this thing in the back, and that's just not working.
Okay.
So that's all there is. And the login hint is, I think it's not totally 100%, but like some documentation says it should always be the UPN. So it should be the email address of the current user. But it's I think in the specification of the, what's that? It's the OAuth 2 flow. It's not specified that it should be the email address or the UPN. It's just a login hint. Could be something else as well. But for Microsoft or for Teams flow, it's the email address. And
you could also get it out of the where you do teams.initialize, then you get the context back, and there it's also provided.
It's also there, yeah. But you can also add your own stuff there. I thought of adding a different query parameter that I'm the only one that's interesting because it's my tab, so you can add information also there. But you get the tenant, you get the login hint, and then you get your configuration for AWS, and then you acquire the ID token, typical AWS flow.
Get the token.
And then acquire token. And then this is the silent way. So I try to acquire a token without a pop-up. That works. If the user already is authenticated in Teams, what most of the time, or at least in my demo, as I'm running it in the browser, I'm already. So let's pray for the demo gods and try again to reload the page. You see, redirect and going forth. And now that we are authenticated with AWS, what AWS does is it stores the token in the local storage. So everything here is coming from AWS except one minor modification, this AWS access token underline. That's me being funny. So I have my secure way of sure that so AWS stores everything in the local storage, and that got me thinking, okay, why not simply create a Blazor component like graph test that does nothing more than call the graph with a simple HTTP client, adds the bureau token, and where do I get the bureau token from? Local storage.
Local storage, yeah.
I'm reading basically, I'm reading on the second page, but the first page is right into the local storage, because it only does that if it it successfully acquires an access token. If it's not working, you will see a pop-up where you need to sign in. That's the normal fallback mechanism of the ADL flow. And then I get my Bearer token, and I'm good to go. And of course, it's not not the sophisticated way with, I think it's 30 minutes lifetime, then you would need a refresh token, or 60 minutes, something like that. So you would need to, for a production environment, make sure that you also re-authenticate in a case of you lost the connection, or your permissions or your graph token expired. But for the simple demo, just getting the Bearer token, HTTP client, and then message text. So we are back to what I like about Blazor. I have a button graph test call, and I have a paragraph message text, default button graph test call. Click here, getting the Bearer token, create a HTTP client, call the graph, and read the result back, and there we go. So it's like, I don't know, 10 lines of code finally to make this happen.
Cool.
And from there now, I already included some Blazor components that make use of the Fluent UI. So this is like a boilerplate now, where I want to add all the different, or I think I want to make this example more like use all the different ways of authentication. So the silent flow, the SSO capabilities that roll out at the moment for Teams, to make sure I have everything in here, and then take this as a boilerplate for creating Teams applications based on Blazor.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, that's cool stuff.
I like it.
It's for me, it's not super sophisticated, but it allows me to create those small demo parts or small mock-ups to show quickly customers what you can do with Teams. And I'm not super familiar with React, and the learning curve is still there for C#.
Yeah,
it was easier for me to get up and running with Blazor, to get up and running with everything that you need for React, to be honest.
Yeah, makes sense.
The thing is, the Blazor components are really minimalistic, right? So you don't have a lot of files and code in there. Whereas if you go with React, you get that crappy Node.js stuff in there, and takes a lot of time to. Yeah, it's not crappy, but it's certainly more dependencies in JavaScript things than C# things. Although I'm not a hardcore JavaScript or C# fan. For this.
I think it kind of depends where you're coming from. Like Thommy says, 10 years C# developer, then probably this is going to be easier. I must admit that over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been doing Angular, I've been doing TypeScript, and I've been doing React. And it doesn't feel that complex anymore, but I do agree that coming from C# only, it's a pretty steep learning curve just going to the full stack world, so to say.
The
cool thing is now both can do it.
Yeah.
Web devs and full stack devs can do basically the same things in Teams.
Yeah, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's the important thing I see. It's for me, it's just a way to spend, I don't know, 2 to 3 days to create a short mock-up that we use in a sales pitch, or to sketch out an idea if an architecture is the right thing, or Teams is the right thing to use.
Yeah, once you
to make.
If you got your boilerplates in order and you create your Teams app with some basic Hello World sample, then it's fairly easy to extend that with, I don't know, people cards or document cards or whatever you want to show using Blazor.
Yeah, this is the hard part. You did the hard part, so.
Yeah, but I'm in the privileged position that my code never sees production, so I can do it.
As well.
some dirty things as well. It's just for a short demo or a short idea. That's of course also the purpose behind that. And I think it's already on my GitHub, but not public available. But I will make it available when build is over to make sure that it's up to date with the latest thing, because playing with those things 2 weeks before build is a super brilliant idea, because the whole world changes.
Yeah, it could be that this doesn't work next week anymore. So.
Yeah.
And it's not a simple all data packages and everything works again issue.
Yeah, not really. Because there are a lot of and that's something interesting also maybe for folks out there. There are a lot of Teams samples also for C#, but you need to be careful about the use.NET framework.
Yeah.
Because if you find an example that worked for .NET Core 2.1 or 2.2, almost everything isn't working then in 3.1.
Yeah.
And if you download an example from GitHub and you press F5 and it's basically shit hit the fan because nothing is working, then I think it's not really that of a good experience. On the other hand, there are so many samples out there and everyone is busy. There's not enough time to update all those examples with the newest framework stuff as well. Yeah, that's
impressive
all I have in the pocket right now.
Impressive stuff. Guess that's it for tonight then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, it was pretty
Pleasure.
cool. Yeah, I'm gonna use this Blazor thingy. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Upload this to GitHub, then I don't have to write the boilerplate code anymore.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, it looks clean and it looks easy.
Yeah, it's.
And you just did the new project and that was it. You just did file new project and it's okay. Cool.
If you create file new project, you will get already the whole application like this here. You get the navigation. I think you get home, you get the counter, you get the fetch data, the personal and production. That's something I added, but you get all those things, and then I just added components from the Teams example. And as I said, I used the JavaScript code from the Node version of an example because it was the latest, like 20 days ago or something like that, because the .NET version was 2 years old, and I wanted to make sure that I'm using the latest authentication, at least in the sample. But in the meantime, ADLJS is not the latest; it's MSAL actually. So I need to add all those different types of authentication also there. But it should be the same approach, just to use the JavaScript part of Blazor to call the Teams JavaScript SDK with the initialize method, and then use MSR to get the token. Because in the end of the day, the idea is that I get the token from the JavaScript part, and Blazor doesn't care what you're using them for.
Cool.
Cool.
It's cool, yeah.
With that, let's call it a night.
It's a good idea. It's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
See you around.
really nice.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to check out the show notes at selectedtech.show to get all the mentioned references. And one more thing, please tweet about the podcast and give them a 5-star review. This really helps the guys a lot. Thank you and see you next time. Bye.